Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner and welcome to day 29 of VLOGMAS. As you can probably tell, I've been filming videos back to back because I am filming my series wrap up for 2019 where I am talking about the series that I've completed, caught up on and started in 2019. Today's video is all about the series that I started in 2019 and it's a lot. Good news for me, I won't be continuing all of them, but yeah, there are some that I will be continuing with in 2020 or whenever the next books in the series are released or when I manage to get the next book in the series. I'm just gonna whip through the titles and authors and put some book covers on the screen because yeah, we don't want to be here until next Christmas. The first book on my list is the Romance Book Club by Alyssa K. Adams. I read the first book this year, the second book is coming out next year. Can't wait to read it. I think it is called Undercover Bromance and I think that one is going to be just as entertaining as the first one. I started the Harbinger series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. The first book was Storm and Fury. I really enjoyed it. It is a young adult urban fantasy paranormal romance series and it was the first Jennifer L. Armentrout book I've read, I think. I do need to read the series that came before it, but you can read this one without reading that. I started Tessa Bailey's Hot and Hammered series and the first book was Fixer Up. I'm going to definitely be reading the second book in the series when it's released. They are contemporary romance stories with a bit of humour woven through them. I will be continuing Leigh Bardugo's Alex Stern series. The first book was The Ninth House, which I actually really enjoyed. It's probably the best Leigh Bardugo book that I have read. I started Robert Jackson Bennett's Foundryside or Founders series, the first book being Foundryside. This was a book that I was cautiously optimistic about enjoying. I did enjoy it. It's still a little bit more fantasy than I tend to read these days and quite a large book as well, but I am very intrigued to continue the series when the next one is released in 2020. I started Patricia Briggs' Mercy Thompson series. This was a series that was recommended by Leanne from Literary Diversions and I'm really enjoying it. It is an urban fantasy shifter story and it is just delightfully fun with great characters. There are shifters and vampires and fae. Mercy, the main character, is kick-ass. I love this series. I'm hoping to binge read the rest of the series very, very soon. I read the first book in Anna Bright's The Beholder series. The first book is called The Beholder. I probably won't be continuing with the series. It is young adult fantasy and it features a whole lot of mythology retellings woven into the story. It was quite a cool concept, but I just probably won't continue with it. I started Gal Carriage's, don't think I'm saying that name right, Parasol Protectorate series with Soulless, and I need to continue this series because I loved that book. I read the first book in Roshani Chakshi's Pandava Quartet, which was Arusha and the End of Time. This is a middle grade, own voices, fantasy story. I enjoyed it, but not as much as I enjoy some of the other middle grade books that I read. So this one I probably won't be continuing, but I did take it into school for the kids to read. I started Ruby Dixon's Ice Planet Barbarians series, which is basically erotic romance books set in space with blue aliens. I read the first book in Ando's Rise of the Mythics series, which is his new middle grade fantasy series, and my class were obsessed with all of his books. Oh, I just realized there's not another book on here. It is another Ando book, which is, well, I've just remembered it, and that's the Wolf Girl series. So I started that. I haven't read book 2 yet. Again, another series my class was obsessed with, and basically they stole my book from me and I didn't see it until the last day of term. I read the first book in Christine Feehan's Ghostwalker series. Can't remember anything about it, won't be continuing the series. Didn't particularly like it. I read the first book in MC Frank's Outlaws series, which is a Robin Hood retelling. I read the first book in Janine Frost's Night Huntress series, which is about a main character who's half human, half vampire. I read the first book in Myra Grant's Rolling in the Deep series, which was Into the Drowning Deep, which is that book about, you know, mermaids killing people, and it was great. It's one of those books that has stuck with me all year. I read the first couple of books in Marie Hall's Kingdom series, which are all fairy tale romance retelling stories. I think the first one was an Alice in Wonderland retelling with Alice and the Mad Hatter, which is probably why I picked it up. I started Charlene Harris's Midnight Texas series, which I think was Midnight Crossroads. Urban fantasy series, won't be continuing with it. I started one of Jack Heath's middle grade stories, or middle grade series, The Pharaoh Files, which is about a teen spy. I read The Devouring Grey by Christina Lynn Herman, which is the first book in the Devouring Grey series, and I will be continuing this one. I did enjoy it. I read the first book in Shona Husk's Precinct 1 series, which was a male-female sci-fi dystopian romance novella, I think, for memory. I read the first book in Danielle L. Jensen's The Bridge Kingdom series, which was just a really fun adult fantasy romance story. I read the first book in Amy Kaufman's Elemental series, Ice Wolves. Won't be continuing with the series. It's middle grade. It is fantasy. It just wasn't my cup of tea. I read the first book in the Aurora cycle by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I will be continuing with this series. It is Love Oz YA science fiction, and it is just fun. It has the best cast of characters and some awesome banter. This one I will be continuing for sure. I read the first book in Bridget Kemero's Cursebreakers series, A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I already have a review copy of the second book. I'm so excited to continue with this. It will be read very early in January, let me tell you. I read the first book in Elle Kennedy's Out of Uniform series, which is just these ones I think were novella-length romance stories from memory. I read the first book in Karen Lix's Sanctuary series, which was called Sanctuary. I won't be continuing the series. It is young adult science fiction, and it is about teens on a prison space station. It was an interesting read. I'm not interested in continuing the series. I read the first book in the Serpent and Dove series by Shelby Mahurin. I will be continuing the series. I enjoyed it. Problematic elements aside, it was just a really fun, easy, enjoyable read. I read the first book in Gina Maxwell's Neverland series. I think it was called Pan. I will be continuing it. It is a contemporary romance story, which is a Peter Pan retelling, but it's not fantasy, it is contemporary. I read the first book in Trish McCallan's Red Hot Seal series. Don't think I'm going to be continuing it because I can't actually remember anything about it. I read the first book in LL McKinney's Nightmareverse series, which was A Blade to Black, and I was actually very pleasantly surprised by it. I will be continuing the series when I can get my hands on a copy of the second book. I read Maya Matein's Nocturna, which was the first book in a Forgery of Magic series. This book, it's a young adult fantasy book, I think, and I have since passed that on to a friend. I won't be continuing with the series. I read the first book in the Takeshi Kovacs series by Richard K. Morgan, that's Altered Carbon. I read it because I watched the Netflix show. I enjoyed the Netflix show. I enjoyed the book. Book's a bit different, but I probably won't be continuing with the series. I read the first book in Emma Newman's Planetfall series. It is titled Planetfall, and these books are really quite atmospheric for science fiction. It is set on a completely different planet, and I may continue with the series at some point. I just don't know when, but I do quite like Emma Newman's writing. I read the first book in the Binti series by Nnedi Okorafor. I won't be continuing with the series, mostly because I don't think I got the book. I think something was fried in my brain the day that I read it, because I walked away with it and I'm pretty much like, huh? And I know that people love it, and that's totally fine. I don't think it's the book for me, or the series for me at the moment. Maybe in the future. I'll get back to you on that one. I read the first two books in Judith Russell's Stella Montgomery Intrigue series, which is a Love Oz Kids middle grade historical fiction, magical realism story, starting with book one, Withering by Sea. A very beautiful student of mine recommended these books to me. I read the first two books and was talking to her about them. And then for Christmas, she bought me the third book. So this is a series that I will be finishing next year. I read the first book in Laura Ruby's York series, The Shadow Cipher. Really great sort of, I don't even know how to describe it. It is a middle grade book. It's set in an alternate New York, and it's all about solving clues and puzzles and finding hidden treasure sort of thing. So it's a really atmospheric book. I started two Brandon Sanderson series, The Reckoners and Skyward. I'll probably continue both at some point, I just don't know when. I started Sierra Simone's Thornchapel series with the first book, Lesson in Thorns. I will be reading the second book. I've heard it is nowhere near as good as the first book, but I'm hoping that the third book will then also pick up, and who knows, maybe I'll enjoy the second book. I can't remember where I got up to in Nalini Singh's Rock Kiss series. These are Rockstar romance books. They are entertaining and fun and very easy to read. I read the first book in Sarah Spade's Holiday Hunk series. I think I read it for Halloween. I don't know if I'm going to continue the series, to be honest. I may at some point, who knows. Finally, I have The Extinction Trials by S.M. Wilson, which is a young adult science fiction dystopian fantasy-ish story. Probably won't be continuing with this series, even though there are dinosaurs. Probably not something I will continue. So those are all of the series that I started in 2019 and sort of my future plans for them, if I will continue them. In the comments below, let me know a series you started in 2019 that you're very eager to continue reading in the future. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow in my next video, but until then, have a great day, guys.